Welcome to the Orgasmic Lifestyle Podcast with me, Venus O'Hara. An orgasmic lifestyle is about reaching a climax in all areas of life, not just in the bedroom. Here, we dive deep with expert guests on topics like nutrition, spirituality, personal development, sexuality, and much more. Together, we'll explore lifestyle lessons to help you lead a life that's fulfilling, joyful, and unapologetically orgasmic. I'm your guide, Venus O'Hara. Welcome to episode 148 of the Orgasmic Lifestyle Podcast with Venus O'Hara. In this new moon episode, we discuss nutrition and fertility. We speak with Rachel Swanson, a celebrity nutritionist and author of Trying, a science-backed plan to optimize your fertility. I also review the series Younger, which is available on Netflix. And the episode ends with a guided meditation with affirmations for healthy eating. But first, let me share with you some of my own experiences with eating. I'm so not sure if it's a good idea to record this monologue while I am thinking about food. I'm about to have my lunch and I am starving. So today's guest has written a book called Trying. It's all about nutrition and fertility, but I'm not going to talk about fertility. That's not really my area of expertise, but food is my second favorite topic. And it's something that it's taken me a very long time to enjoy and make friends with, make peace with, I think. As a child, I was a very fussy eater and I would only eat foods that were familiar to me and I would never try new things. And now I am so different. And I think for me, when I was growing up, my parents didn't really know what to do with me in terms of food. I had to go to some food specialists and I had some health issues as a result of just not really eating anything. But it was such a pain to, go to people's houses, friends' houses to have dinner or lunch and have this fear of what am I going to have to eat. I didn't have that. I don't know what it is. I would love to explore why that was so apparent or so present in my own upbringing, this whole fear of food and fear of trying new things. I remember the first time I grew up in an Irish Catholic family, so we ate potatoes every single day. And I remember I went to a friend's house when I was about 12 and I was given pasta shells with some tomato sauce, and I was expecting some potatoes on the side. And all my friends were laughing at me, and her siblings were just laughing at me as if I was super naive, which of course I was at the time. I remember the first time I actually put pasta in my mouth, it felt plasticky. I was like, whoa, this is weird. But it's just so interesting how, putting something in your mouth and just, chewing it around and swallowing it doesn't seem to be that easy for some people. It definitely wasn't for me. But when I discovered vegetarianism, that definitely opened me up to new food possibilities. And I just realized I just don't like meat. I don't like meat, and I've never eaten fish in my life. And becoming a vegetarian, even though for many people, they would say that's restricting, it actually opened me up to vegetables. And pizza used to be my favorite dish ever. And I was able to have a pizza with any type of vegetable on it, and that kind of opened me up to vegetables, which was wonderful. But now I am celebrating 8 years as a vegan this year, and for now, I don't have that fear of food anymore. I am open to trying anything as long as it's plant-based, and it's just really, I think food now is a celebration. It's no longer something that I fear. It's something that I really look forward to. And every time I go to the grocery store, I try and buy something I've never bought before, not just for nutritional purposes, but also just for my brain. I think it's really good to create new neural pathways by, having new habits. And then I just buy something I've never seen before, don't know what it is, something that's in season, because I do buy local, organic, locally sourced foods, and then just Google or ChatGPT and just say, how can I prepare this? So it's just wonderful to have that curiosity now about food. And I'm very passionate about eating healthily, and also sharing my food. So I always share my food on my Instagram story. So I not just I don't just make beautiful, colorful plates for myself, but also I like to share them because I do think that food is a scent or a way or an expression of self-love. I really believe that. And on that note, I'm going to go and make some delicious food. I'm just don't know what I'm going to make. I might make roast vegetables or vegan fajitas. Decisions. Bon appetit to me. Are you looking to strengthen your pelvic floor in a fun and engaging way? Introducing Perifit, the pelvic floor trainer that combines biofeedback with interactive video games. With Perifit, you can track your progress and improve your pelvic health while playing video games with your vagina on your smartphone. It's easy, effective, and more importantly, it's fun. And for a limited time, get 25% off with the code Venus15 at checkout. That's perifit.co and use the code Venus15 for 25% off. The link is also in the show notes. Disclaimer: consult your healthcare provider before starting any new fitness program. Now it's time for this episode's interview. We speak with Rachel Swanson, who is a celebrity nutritionist and author of Trying, a science-backed plan to optimize your fertility. Rachel Swanson, welcome to the Orgasmic Lifestyle Podcast. It's a real pleasure to have you here.
Oh, it's such a pleasure. Thank you so much for having me. I mean, Venus, I know you just pressed record, but I'm like, man, I think hours could have passed without you even pressing record. You're so easy to talk to and so lovely. Thank you for having me here.
Thank you so much. For those who are unfamiliar with your work, could you tell us what you do?
Sure. So I help other people optimize their health so they can fully live out their life's purpose. And the way I go about supporting them is through diet and lifestyle changes that are highly personalized to their biochemistry and highly personalized to their specific goals. So by training, I'm a registered dietitian. I did my rotations at Mount Sinai Hospital in New York City. I did my graduate degree at NYU. I did some functional medicine coursework on top of that. So I've been practicing, full time in concierge medicine since 2017. I've also had my own private practice since 2017 as well. And so what that kind of looks like is, aside from having these amazing conversations with individuals like yourself, I'm really working one-to-one with clients all day long. And if I'm not doing that, then I'm typically going to be tailoring their treatment plan and working with their doctor on that, or essentially doing research for them for their treatment plan. So that's really what my day-to-day looks like.
So what inspired you to follow this path related to food?
Oh my gosh. I mean, well, there's so many reasons for this. And, I think kind of going down, like choosing the path for fertility and to write a book about fertility, it kind of stemmed from dozens of reasons, but all of which was born out of like this need that I was witnessing clinically. So full disclosure, I never really wanted to kind of pursue the path of just focusing on fertility, right? Even writing this book, but I just felt I had the calling to help more women with what they were experiencing. And I'll kind of paint you that picture. So really the lay of the land when it comes to fertility, what I'm witnessing is that there's tremendous kind of innovation on the tech side, meaning for, egg retrieval and amazing procedures, right? Like IVF. But, at the same time, the advice that we're giving women about their body is kind of like, I think of it almost as like prehistoric, right? So we're not even advancing the knowledge about how we can approach our fertility to optimize our body, right? To be ready to conceive. And so look, that was just part of the picture, right? But I hated just seeing women come to me in this very disempowered state, right? It's like one of the most powerful and special transitions in a woman's life that some women would like to make, it's like it's stripped away of the empowerment. I don't know, this kind of ate at me day in and day out, Venus, and I wanted to do something more to help them. And so really I went down this path. I wrote this book because I wanted women to have more agency over their outcomes. I wanted to equip them with knowledge about how they could optimize their health in a way that's conducive to getting pregnant. But to be honest with you, my real hope is that in that process, women can also fall back in love with how remarkable their bodies actually are. And like Venus, you help women so much with this, right? Operate from a place of abundance and to embody their own, their full feminine energy. I mean, getting in touch with this source power, I feel like kind of goes hand in hand in all this, wouldn't you say?
Absolutely, absolutely. So going back to that, and before the fertility interest, and what about the food? What inspired you to actually follow the path of food before getting into fertility?
Well, it really kind of came down to a class that I took in undergrad.
Mm,
This was physiology, but I just never had the desire to pursue that path in terms of medicine, right? Like
mm,
pharmacology, how drugs work
mm,
in the body. I was always drawn to say, like, I want to help people with tools that they have at their disposal and the wonderful healing abilities that food brings as well. Like pairing these two together, I just couldn't think of a more, better passion that I could live out and help people with. So I really think this is my, why I'm here to basically teach about physiology, but in a way that allows people to nourish themselves fully through food.
mm. So would you say you're a foodie? Were you a foodie, or like you appreciate healthy food?
A little bit of both. I think it
Mm,
was never really from my personal interest in food. It was more about just like the remarkable healing qualities of the food itself and the science around that as well and how
mm,
it interacts with our cells. But yes, I think like right now, if you were to ask me, do I eat healthy 80% of the time? You bet I do. Do I
mm,
love the other 20% of the time where I'm a foodie and like
mm,
trying out different cuisines and different types of foods? Hell yes.
mm. Amazing. We've actually had Gabriella Rosa on this podcast as well. So
You,
she's a
Venus, you've had tremendous people on your podcast. Like it's so
yeah.
impressive.
Yeah, because she's also into natural fertility. Because I think it's so interesting. Because I thought it was so interesting because I've done 140 episodes,
Oh my
and
gosh.
only one of them about this was talking about sexuality from a fertility perspective. Everything else is about pleasure. So it's just really interesting because I've had a Catholic upbringing. So going back to thinking of sex as procreation was a very kind of new idea. But her thing wasn't directly related to food, but it was a natural. It was still a natural approach to fertility, which is really interesting.
Yeah,
Mm,
absolutely. I mean, probably just kind of finding the path. I mean, look, this topic I feel has just become so like again over medicalized or almost
mm,
like mechanical in the sense of the process of what you're referring to, and it is quite interesting, right?
uh-huh,
And how we can kind of shift the narrative and perspective, or at least that's what I hope to do. But yeah, it is quite interesting time in that sense.
mm. Yeah, I've been reading a book. I'm about halfway through. It's
You
super interesting.
are.
Yeah, yeah.
Oh my
That's one of my
gosh.
USP. So I kind of always make sure I read the books before I interview the authors, which is an amazing privilege of mine as a podcaster. And it's just,
Incredible.
it's sort of super interesting because I see a lot of kind of very a lot of advice which is very based in common sense. Would you say it's something to follow at any stage of life, not just for fertility?
I absolutely would. I actually really appreciate you mentioning that because the how I went about writing this book, like it's all
Mm,
going to make sense in terms of what you just said. Like some of it is
mm,
very common sense, it's very intuitive, right? It should feel that way, but how you feel when you kind of are reading through that information, that's actually not intuitive, and that's not the information being, provided to women when they're hoping to get pregnant. And so yes, I don't really talk about this angle, which you are like
mm,
delightfully intelligent to just pull this out, but I did this very strategically. So if if a woman just read that book at this time in her life, I actually wanted to set her up for success, even when she does become pregnant, or if she doesn't become pregnant, she'll still impart this knowledge. And so, anyways, the reason why that makes sense is because it's really from what's called a systems biology perspective. So, for example, one of the chapters that you've probably already read since you're halfway through the book is about metabolic health.
Mm.
That is going to apply no matter what someone's health goal is, right? That's going to help them live a longer and more fulfilled life because they're going to live a longer life if they're if they're metabolically healthy. So, yes, absolutely. It totally applies outside of
Mm.
fertility. So I really hope even you've kind of had these little nuggets and takeaways that are interesting and that who knows, maybe even apply to you just because it's all of the science and the research, the 400 citations in there are specific
Wow.
to fertility,
Mm.
but the information, the core of the topics that I'm presenting are are applicable to every single person on this planet.
There's a lot of talk about gut health in general and how it applies to, hormonal health, etc. Can you tell us about the relation of gut health and how that can affect fertility?
Yeah. So I see gut health, what do we know about gut health? I think in relation to fertility, might have heard, oh, it helps with, hormones because of it helps with detox of estrogen, right? Like that's one component. Yes, that's very cool. That's just one little nugget of information. Some other people hear about gut health just in terms of, regularity, or that people are starting to talk about gut-brain axis and just the relation of the gut to all these systems in our body, right? But I just think it's so much bigger than that, and it's so much more inspiring to that. So the gut microbiome is basically like this interface, or think of like almost like a middleman that our like the intelligence from food, right,
Mm.
gets metabolized by all these little gut microbes, and they communicate with our immune system. And then this is how we can leverage inflammation levels in our body. I think a lot of people miss how powerful this really is in terms of what we're eating. It's not just for nutrients, it's how we're interfacing with our immune system every single day. It's how we're influencing inflammation in our body every single day. And guess what? If you ask any doctor about any fertility doctor or just any doctor in general, what are the things that unanimously is agreed upon as important? Well, lowered inflammation in the body is generally good.
Mm.
And, not having a underactive or overactive immune system is pretty darn good too. So this Venus is our leverage point, right? The gut and then the
Mm.
foods that we feed all of our gut microbes.
Oh, wow. Amazing. So, have you got any tips for someone to kind of improve their gut health? Any three tips,
I'll
like your top tips?
Oh, yeah, don't make me distill it down to three tips, but yes,
Yeah,
of course.
okay, or as
Um,
many as like the first that comes to your mind, or the easiest ones to implement, let's say. The easiest
Okay,
ones to
I
implement.
will I will give
Mm.
you the easiest one, and it's
Mm.
actually just for people to start really understanding the signs and symptoms kind of associated with gut health. And this is what everyone can do. You do not need to have a fancy microbiome analysis, although that's an option for you and
Mm.
it's discussed in the book.
Mm.
But I think if people kind of just start paying attention to kind of what Mother Nature gives us every day or, every other day, which is our bowel movements, if we can
Mm.
kind of understand what is regular, what is not regular, which most people know, again, very intuitively, this is your opportunity to be like, okay, what of the inputs, right, that I'm putting into my body is not, conducive to an optimal environment, right? So, like, let me give you an example without kind of, making people like squeamish with too many details. Like, let's just say if you're having way too many kind of loose bowel movements on a daily basis, or if you're on the other end of the spectrum, right? If you're very, very constipated, I would say both of those states, that's telling me, right, as a dietitian, information that something is not optimal of what you are eating on a day-to-day basis, right? What you're putting in your body. Venus, of course, this
Mm.
expands way beyond diet, which maybe we can
Mm.
get to, but I just want to say that is like the biggest tip, the quickest takeaway that someone can start thinking about every single day. And they can use N equals one. They can use their own body as a way of telling them what's working and what's not. I can't tell you how many people who are just not doing this, right? We kind of
Mm.
just ignore the obvious. So that's kind of tip number one.
So we'd say keeping a
I'll
food diary, for example, to kind of like track. Would you say that would be a way to track it?
for some people,
Mm,
that is absolutely
mm,
ideal. And there is no quicker way to kind of
mm,
find out what's working and what's not working.
mm,
And just doing that, again, I don't even want someone to come to me for me to help them because guess what? I might actually ask them to do a food log because people
mm,
are there. We're so bad, right, at
mm,
recounting what we ate, even like yesterday or the day before. I would probably have someone do that to start. And then I would have them do, again, if something's very, very off and we're like, what the heck is going on? I would encourage them to do kind of what I call like a 1 week, maybe a 2 week diet striptease, which is
mm,
basically taking out some of the foods that have, I'm going to call it just the most like these have a potential of provoking a lot of people's bodies, not everyone, but I would take out things like maybe wheat, dairy, added sugar, alcohol, these sorts of foods for again, just a week or two. Because I really want to see someone's baseline and
mm,
then we can work them back in. I'm not someone who's all about always for food restriction or anything like
mm,
that, but we also have to understand what is reacting with our body and what is not, right? So
mm,
we can definitely do that piece, but I love kind of that food log
mm.
suggestion as and paired that with the diet striptease that we're talking about.
Amazing. 'Cause I've seen some really interesting content on Instagram, because I don't know why, but I think the algorithm's changed and I'm being shown things from people I don't even follow. It's so annoying. Anyway, I've seen all this. 'Cause I'm a vegan, so I follow lots of vegan accounts. But then I'm getting targeted with carnivore accounts, and I've seen these people say that they
Oh,
have
how
one
funny.
one.
How,
It's like why? But one bowel movement a month. That can't be right. People are saying, yeah, I only have one bowel movement a month. It's
no,
just like.
please don't tell me that. I don't even want to hear about that.
But I've heard of it from several accounts of people who eat just like an animal-based diet and they're kind of saying that it's a good thing. And I'm like, that can't be good. Because I think there's just so many extremes in diet. In the world of diet, there's just so many biases as well. So, so
So many biases, but no, I mean that. Well, great. Now I'm going to be stuck on that. Like, who was saying that they're having one
yeah.
bowel movement a month? I clearly need to look into this because that is by no
Mm,
means healthy in any way. But I think even aside though from the diet conversation, something really simple that I think everyone can do better is kind of thinking about their own nervous system and their emotional regulation and how that can impact just their gut function. Again, related to the optimizing the microbiome, right? And
mm,
again, we overlook this so much, but what's so interesting though that anyone who deals with individuals who are essentially also working with a psychiatrist or a psychotherapist or a therapist for different mood disorders, for example, or just having a lot of anxiety, a lot of nervousness in their life, so on and so forth. What any one of those individuals can tell you is that depending on sort of what they're experiencing that day, their gut responds as well. So there's this amazing sort of gut
mm,
brain connection with all of this, which kind of goes back to saying, hey, if you can different ways of regulating your thoughts, perception of self, right? Perception of your place in the world also kind of relates to very much how your gut is going to be functioning on a day-to-day basis. It's
I, ca-
wild, isn't it?
I kind of believe that because I think sometimes, our attitude towards what we're consuming can influence how it affects us. I mean, an example would be if you feel guilty about the chocolate, maybe it's not going to have that a good effect on you. Do you know what I mean? If you're
Oh my
feeling, yeah,
gosh.
would you think that's true?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. And it's so intuitive. And again, I really, really appreciate the things that you're saying because
Mm,
this is not really commonplace, but it's so important.
mm,
So yes, I very much think the attitude by which we show up to our meal is going to influence a lot. And look, I can't say, are there randomized controlled trials showing this? Well, no, but I can take from some smaller studies paired with, years of clinical experience, and I can tell you, the individuals who, maybe um, take one moment to take a deep breath, right? Or to kind of come with their meal, not in sort of this frantic energy, fight or flight state, maybe with a moment of gratitude, right? Or thinking about
mm,
something pleasant or funny. They're going to sort of receive that food much differently. I'm not
Mm,
talking about in terms of like the calories in that food or something of that nature,
mm,
right? The scientific, the composition itself. I'm talking about like how our body receives it. So I don't know, is our gut going to be in a state where it's a little bit more leaky because we're
like
just pulsing like high cortisol in our body
guilt,
24/7?
guilt.
Yeah, exactly right. Or are
Mm,
we in like this communal setting, Venus, where we're
mm,
like laughing and enjoying ourselves, right? And eating this food, and maybe it is indulgent, right? But
mm.
yes, I think it just kind of goes back to the biology of belief as well.
Interesting. I actually tried raw vegan diet this summer for 2 months. It was so interesting. It was really interesting experiment. I did it in June and July, so it was a good time to do it because it's summer, and I started learning a lot of new things with I bought spiralizer and it was interesting. So I had to eat a lot more quantity, but the gut it was I mentioned it because of the gut. It took me 8 days to get kind of normal bowel movements. It was a bit of an adjustment.
I bet.
I do have a high raw
Yeah.
diet anyway, but I found it was just so amazing. Like the energy was just incredible. It's not something I would keep up for a long time because it's very monotonous and it's not very social. Like you can't really go out to many places, eat it with a raw diet, But
Yeah.
it's really interesting experiment.
Well,
Mm,
well, it is kind of a fascinating experiment, and I very much,
mm,
I mean, look, I'm all for it. I think in a way, if we can kind of look at different dietary like behaviors or like different opportunities to eat in a different way,
mm,
and understand if that better serves our own body, right? Not individuals on like social media or like influencers say this or that, but like
mm,
really understand how it impacts our body, or our mood, or like, if it makes you less social, maybe that's not a great choice for someone, right? it's
mm.
it's just all fantastic. And so I'm all for kind of, again, that like N equals one experimentation in a way to find what works best for you.
Amazing. I have a friend who, with his girlfriend, he goes to a different nationality restaurant every week. I think it's a great thing to do.
Oh, that sounds fun.
I know it's like traveling around the world in Barcelona, It's just like every single week there's a different nationality. It's a great way to kind of experiment different foods, I think. 'Cause I think travel is, we were talking about travel earlier, that's a great way to experience different cuisines, don't you think?
It's so true. And it's actually one of the things that I enjoy so much about travel too, is just kind of how all of these different cultures and their own dishes and how much like warmth and love they put into their meals and their cherishing, right, of certain traditions. Like that's actually one part of travel that I absolutely love, kind of fully embedding myself and
Mm.
trying new dishes to what. But I think I'm going to take the friend's advice and kind of start
Yeah.
integrating the new cuisines every week. I love it.
Yeah, it's a great idea. Absolutely. And what about supplements? What about supplements for fertility?
Yeah, I think so. I guess taking a step back, I look at this in several different ways. And I also should be very clear that every single person in practice, it's very rare that I'm recommending the exact same supplement. I do want to put that out there. So, like, let me give you an example. A supplement, fertility or not, that I would recommend to you, right? The
Mhm.
supplement stack, like, so much different than I would recommend maybe someone else. And it would come after having basically like at least a 60-minute conversation or consultation. So that's how much information I'm getting from someone in order to personalize their supplements and their protocol. So I had to put that on the table,
Mm,
Venus, just because
mm,
I don't want to kind of shout general advice, because I'm kind of that kind of makes me cringe in every
yeah.
way possible.
Mm,
So, but for fertility, big picture, I always look at like number one, a very high quality prenatal vitamin is definitely in order, and very much for the male partner
oh,
as
wow.
well, right? Having all of these nutrients for him to has been shown again and again to be very supportive of his fertility. So I kind of think of it as a prenatal for him and her that needs to take place. For both partners, I would also recommend potentially taking additional vitamin D only if
Mm,
their labs show that they are suboptimal. So not necessarily deficient, but suboptimal, because we know being in kind of that optimal range, call it, well, in the States is like 40 to 60 nanograms per mil. Essentially those, and I know it's you're probably dealing with nanomoles. I think that's like 70 to 100. Please don't quote me on that though.
mm,
Um, we want to get the body within that range because it's going to support better, essentially, fertility outcomes. Another one that I think a lot about and is generally helpful for the broader population are the omega 3s. Venus, this can be, vegan
Mhm.
derived omega
Mhm.
3s for individuals, like yourself. So I think about that because, again, this one has very strong data showing better fertility outcomes from there. So that's our foundation. From
Mhm.
there, we can definitely, based off of what you're interested in, we can talk about more kind of advanced strategies and more kind of maybe we want a little bit more antioxidant support for someone who maybe doesn't have as healthy of a lifestyle or is dealing with certain issues like diminished ovarian reserve or just things of that nature, where then there are endless strategies that have been shown quite helpful to supplement in addition. I'm happy to go into examples
Mhm.
if you'd like.
It's interesting because I don't think there's enough information or knowledge out there about the importance of vitamin D. Because I was actually in hospital in 2021. I had COVID and pneumonia, and it was I was in a private hospital, so I had the best conditions. But all the doctors, and I got like Instagram friendly food. I mean, it was amazing because the public hospitals are quite good here, but I was in a private one, so it was amazing. So I was very
Okay,
sick,
I'm
and all.
jealous. I know exactly the food they give out in our hospitals. That is not it.
But it was amazing. And but it was really all the doctors were telling me that because I was vegan, I'm gonna have to get blood work every 3 months, and I was just like, I don't think this is true. But I made it my business I had to become a very good vegan. Like after when I came out of hospital, and I really worked hard on that. But then actually, I had a very severe vitamin D deficiency, and I was starting losing my hair. And it was
Oh my
so
gosh.
crazy. Now I've got quite good hair, but I mean, my hair's pretty
Yeah, it
good
looks
now.
amazing from what I see on camera.
But it was but I was just like losing clumps of hair. And I just think in the vegan community everyone just talks about B12, and they're not talking about all these other things that we need. And I just thought this was terrible. So I actually have good vitamin D now, and also the omega 3, because not enough talk about that either. Because there's talk about this, not all of some doctors talk about, you need supplements, and others say you don't because there's some kind of natural conversion. But I just thought it was really interesting how, in the vegan community, they don't just talk about B12, but not so much about the D. And not because I don't
I'm
think
so
sun is.
surprised.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is a huge
Mm.
surprise to me. And I just think about, I mean, why were the doctors, which look, at the end of the day, doctors, they aren't trained in nutrition. That's
Yeah,
why
that's
there's
what's
that
crazy, isn't
dietitians
it? Yeah.
exist, right? In the hospital. Like we all work together. And so it's like the fact though that they were able to share that information, I think was fabulous. And just think about what you said though. You were in the hospital because of these, basically everything related to your immune system was not optimal, right?
Mm.
Vitamin D is cornerstone to a proper immune system. So I kind of
Mm.
think about, again, just those interrelations, not saying that if you were vitamin D sufficient, you still wouldn't be there. I'm not
Mm.
extrapolating that, but again, it's huge in terms of our body's innate immunity, right? Being able to
Mm.
support that. But yeah, I'm so surprised it's not talked about more because most people are sort of suboptimal in terms of the levels just based off of data, at least from the US, kind of these national surveys.
Mm.
From the omega 3, I guess, I understand that. I know the conversion that you're talking about in terms of the plant-based foods.
Mm.
However, I think for most people, again, fertility or not, right? It's for vegans especially, that conversion is actually quite low of plant-based foods. And so that's why for all my vegans, I absolutely want them to have sort of a vegan derived omega-3. So it's really a marine derived omega-3. And
Mm.
if you think that you don't need it, again, this is actually an opportunity to do some very, very basic lab work. At least I can speak to here in the US where you can, do like an omega-3 test, an omega-3 index test at home. Like you can literally order this kit on Amazon by Omega Quant that you
Mm.
can look at your levels and just you could see for yourself. Don't like literally don't take my advice for it.
Mm.
And if you really want to be sort of an omega-3 index over about 8.5%, and that's looking at the I should have said this from the get-go, apologies. this is looking at your omega-3s in the membrane of your red blood cell. And what we know is that's correlated to, cardiovascular incidents. And so again, like aside from fertility, right, this is very important just for longevity purposes. And so I want people to understand how to do some like very, very basic blood work so they can tailor the supplements to themselves. They don't have to listen to Instagram and like all the ads that are being fed to them. They can, figure out and personalize for their own body.
And what about age, AAM, geriatric maternity, as they call it?
Oh,
So this
yeah,
is a
don't
big
you love
topic.
that it's called that?
I know. I just saw something recently about some new research about the old eggs and how it's not that bad, and it's more about the sperm. I'm not sure what your view is on that. Well, I'm sure a lot of people, because women, a lot, we're choosing different. You have different life choices now, so people are not usually, thinking of fertility at the times when the body is optimal for the body.
Oh, we are.
Mm,
And I mean, that's just based off of, society in general. I
mm,
mean, we oftentimes put our like careers first, right? Or we oftentimes like don't find the partner that we, want to have a family
mm,
with. And we can't control these things. And so yes, but I know I certainly love the term. I know in the medical community, the reason why they state that is just because they want to essentially discern women who might be at like higher risk for developing certain complications in their pregnancy. So like that's one of the reasons why. But yeah, otherwise, like we hate the label, right? Hate it,
mm,
reject it. But anyways, the way that I look at this, so a few different things based off of what you said. So I very much see just pregnancy in general as 50-50, right? So we like in my practice, I go about trying to optimize the male's health just as much as the females, because remember, we have like 50-50 egg, sperm, and their genetics coming together. We also have the gene expression. So if I take like a snapshot of mom's health and a snapshot of dad's health at the same time prior to getting pregnant, they can confer these epigenetic advantages or not to their child. That is going to influence their disease susceptibility later in life. So again, both parents' health are equally important in that respect. Going to what you said in terms of like, oh yeah, what can be done here? I very much take the approach in the book that it's like, hey, chronological age is one thing. It certainly is not, to our advantage by any means. It certainly isn't a reason to, not go to your doctor in case you do need to do egg retrieval and freezing to set you up for success. Because again, not all women are with their partner, right? They want to get pregnant
mm,
with. So I want people to be set up in that way. But I very much take the approach in the book that it's like, look, yes, we know about chronological age, geriatric pregnancy, advanced maternal age, whatever you want to call it. Let's put that to the side and let's kind of just, I want people to feel very empowered about how they can change their own biology, right? Their egg quality, their sperm quality, really change how the body is operating and functioning and the quality of all of our cells in our body, which absolutely can be influenced. And that's exactly what the book kind of empowers you to do. Because it's like, yeah, well, we have these factors we can't control, but there are so many things in our favor that we can control that is mutable, right? To our
mm,
diet, lifestyle, the things in our environment. And I think that's absolutely the most remarkable opportunity that we have, especially
mm.
preconception.
There's a really interesting documentary on British TV a few years ago, and it was called something like Ages of Motherhood, and it was comparing women at different ages and how they reacted or were
Oh,
living with. And
fascinating.
they had like the teenage mother, like 15-year-old, and then kind of an 18-year-old, because obviously there's a big difference between those ages mentally, and then the kind of 20 something, 30 something, and then the 45-year-old. So it was just so interesting because the youngest one was just, she had no kind of life experience. She just got on with it, and she's probably someone who didn't have many aspirations in life. So she just got pregnant, and she didn't really take her doctor's appointments very seriously, but she just got on with it. But then the 45-year-old was, she'd had her career, she had her house, and she had a very specific ideas about how she wanted to do this. It was just so opposite. It was really interesting. They're trying to see what the best age is, but obviously the best age is like whenever you're ready, I suppose. Yeah.
Oh, I mean, look,
Mm.
that will always be the ideal time. I guess again, I'm coming from sort of one component, which is very the medical end, and any doctor will of course tell you like the earlier the better, right?
Mm.
But again, because that is the truth. And I'm here to say, well, what can we do for individuals who do want to wait, right? Or again, who are not in a position to build a family right now. And so I want everyone to be set up with success at the tools that they can optimize their biology, no matter what their age is.
So I'm sure you're working with clients kind of like for a natural conception. So what about, do you support people through IVF as well?
Yeah, absolutely. So in practice and in the book, what I do is again, every woman and every woman listening to this, right? Everyone has their own journey. I'm just here to support whatever journey that they're on. Sometimes it's going to be they want to try to conceive naturally. Other times they're going to present to me after trying for years, okay? And
Oh,
they're
wow.
definitely undergoing, egg retrieval and IVF and want to be supported that way. The recommendations in the book, right? How we go about optimizing the body. Here's the amazing thing. Again, I wrote the book so it applies to both kind of journeys, no matter what journey someone is on. And I think that's also very important, right? Because it's not like natural versus IVF. Like, look, I'm here, I'm on this planet to support women no matter what their journey looks like. So that's kind of where I'm coming from.
Yeah, because if you're pregnant, you're pregnant. So, so I guess it's like you have to support that pregnancy.
Everyone's journey is so
Mm.
different. We just want to uplift women and empower them as much as possible, no matter where they are in their life and at what stage or what age.
It says, I saw something very interesting in the pitch deck that that was sent to me for you. Something about kissing and oral health. I just thought that was so interesting. Tell us about that. It was very
Sure.
intriguing.
Yes. So,
Mhm.
so big picture in the microbiome chapter. So we spoke about the gut, but yes, there are other reproductive relevant,
Mm.
ecosystems. Shall we call them?
Mhm.
One of them is the oral microbiome. So
Mm.
again, big picture. I included this because this is the lowest hanging fruit for individuals to improve upon, right? That could actually impact their fertility outcomes, which is mind blowing in and of itself with what I just said. But with the oral microbiome, yes, in terms of the microbial transfer that can take place with individuals that you spend the most time with. So the
Mm.
example I gave in the book, which you just mentioned, is essentially, the person that you're kissing, you might be doing everything to optimize your, oral microbiome health, like doing all the things. Whereas your partner, he might get a little lazy in terms of that department, right? Like, doing all of the basics. So I said that in the book to make the point that again, it's such a team sport, and I
Mm.
don't want one person to be doing all of the things to support their body, to support these amazing ecosystems in our body, and then the other person like not really take charge. Because again, the people that we spend the most time with, there is microbial transfer in the mouth. Obviously, the individual that we're having sex with, there's microbial transfer there. That's also, by the way, kind of some interesting research that came about pretty recently in the last few years is that some women, for example, with reoccurring bacterial vaginosis, right, this infection that some women have quite frequently, they found that if the male partner was also treated with the antibiotic, it actually led to better outcomes than just treating the female alone. So again, there's all of this kind of microbial transfer happening with the person that we spend the most time with. So we want our partner to also be doing all of the things, right? That benefit the couple together and make them stronger together.
Amazing. Would you recommend scheduling sex then to kind of make conception more probable, and
You know,
following
this
kind of
it,
the cycle and things like that?
oh, as in terms of like planning around the
Yeah, ovulation.
planning
Yeah.
around ovulation and the fertility window. I think, look, there's kind of two different approaches that I
Hmm.
see to this. One is very scheduled in a way, but it doesn't have to feel mechanical. So
Mm,
I think for kind of going down this path, we as women, we have kind of amazing, like Mother Nature has given us signals that we can use to our advantage, like our temperature changes, like our changes in cervical mucus. So then we can predict when ovulation is occurring and then essentially backtrack, right? Kind of like, or forecast rather for our next cycle. And then that kind of gives us the window that we can then use to schedule sex, if you will. So that is kind of one approach. I can kind of tell you a few downsides that I've seen clinically with that,
mm,
or at least what women report to me. Then there's this other approach that, again, it's like if a couple is having sex 2-3 times a week, it doesn't really matter because you are going to actually hit that ovulation,
mm,
that fertile window if you're having, intercourse like that often. But it's like to put everyone in the same bucket in terms of like what their libido is and what they want and
mm,
what satisfies them and all of these things. It's like it's absolutely impossible. I can't even imagine someone trying to do that. But I would say this: if you are scheduling it around your fertile window, the last thing I want for that couple is, again, just for it to feel very like mechanical, and it just then relate to like disappointment every single month, because like that's not ideal. And you could probably speak to this like
mm,
even more, right? It's not ideal at
mm,
all. I mean, we have to inject like fun and playfulness to that area too. I know it's very serious, and I know people are really getting their hopes up. Think about the women who have maybe tried for years and years. Like it's not like
mm,
it weighs heavy on them. But all I can say is we have to find ways to like inject that fun and that connection back to our partner. Like heck,
mm.
Venus, this could even be as simple as like role playing and getting some
Yeah.
like costumes and right and just putting that fun energy back into this. Like again, I want to hear your thoughts on this because I know this is what you do and actually what you help so many people with.
Well, I would say I was kind of similar to what we talked about earlier about the food attitude. And I think it's the same about the attitude you have towards the sex and how receptive you are to it. Because we see so many of these examples. There's so many examples of people who've been trying for years and then they adopt. And then because they relax, then they conceive,
Yes,
you know?
well known, right?
Yeah. Yeah. So I really believe that because there's an amazing series called Tell Me You Love Me. I don't know if you've seen this. It's from the mid 2000s. One of the best.
Wait, I
Oh
haven't
my
seen
God,
it. Do
it's
tell.
amazing. It's so amazing. It's one of the best, most explicit series I've ever seen. And it really conveys the emotional side of sexuality because sexuality is just such a big thing. It's way more than the physical. And anyway, it's the premise is it's basically an older sex therapist who's treating three different couples who have very different problems. One couple has not had sex for a year and they could just do it, but there's this kind of invisible wall they just can't cross. And then there's another couple who are trying for a baby. So it's all that mechanical disappointment with periods and all that. And there's another couple who kind of break up because they're very young and there's a woman's having a lot of sex with kind of different people and stuff. And they're all going to the same therapist and the older therapist is
Interesting.
like having loads of sex. She's like kind of old, isn't it? She must be about 70 or 80, but it's one of the best series I've ever seen. It's actually very explicit as well. That's why people got into watching it. But what shares about sexuality, I think, is so interesting about how it really, how it's kind of like the barometer of intimacy and our emotional well-being in a relationship. So I think having that, that mechanical thing is just a killer. I mean, I think I've not had children, but if I was going to go down that route, I would just rather just see what happens and just be more relaxed
Sure.
about it and just kind of leave it
Yeah.
to God kind of thing, and just leave it for
Yeah.
it to be a blessing rather than, looking at days and like, oh, now finish your sandwich now. There was one scene in this series like that, finish your sandwich now. And it's just like, I mean, it's not very erotic. I mean,
Not at all, right?
and then what happens is when they conceive, then the sex is over. I think that can happen sometimes. I've had many friends who've been trying, and then as soon as the woman gets pregnant, then the regular sex kind of ends or something.
Yeah,
So
oh
yeah.
my gosh, there's just so many
Mm,
things there too, just in
mm,
terms of like how it represents, also like how we see ourselves, right? This is the relationship to ourselves and to our partner, right? So
mm,
there's so many different like dynamics and like dimensions and layers to this. And yes, I mean, look, I think if I had a magic wand, would the approach look like exactly what you just described, right? Kind of like leaving it almost to this greater power, right? Like I look at it as like, let's do everything that we can to support our health and our body, and then take that as empowerment, right? Like feeling this tremendous confidence with oneself and our ability to create life, if that's in the cards for us. But again, like that would be just this beautiful magic wand. But then it's on the other hand, right? Some of these women, again, it's like they come in and there's for their journey in life. And like they've been trying for like call it 5 years. They want nothing more than to have, a child, even though like I think, well, families can actually look a lot different, right? For
Mm,
different people and different couples. But yeah, so it's like I kind of see all angles to
mm.
this, and just how it's never going to be one fit for one individual. And gosh, people get so many emotions tied up to this. Like,
Yeah.
let me tell you. But yeah, wouldn't that be so wonderful, right? That everyone could kind of come from that place that it's like, hey, what happens, happens.
Yeah, well, obviously you can't disclose any information of your clients, but have you seen any
Mm.
amazing transformations of like health that have really, let's say someone's gone from not healthy to healthy and then conceiving and
This one, as soon as you said that, I'm just going to tell you the individual kind of their story that popped into mind. However, it wasn't about this individual kind of not being able to get pregnant, but here's what was fascinating, because as soon as you said health, I'm like, oh, I have one for you.
Mhm.
So one woman who's had three kids already, she was either, I believe, 40 or 41, 42, but basically within those 2 years, she came to see me after having three kids, and each of her pregnancies progressively more complicated. What I mean by that is, think, the first time she had a gestational hypertension, right? So high blood pressure. Next time, right, she had gestational diabetes plus hypertension. Now she has to have medication. Now she's a high risk pregnancy, so on and so forth. But just every single pregnancy, so much harder for her body. But she was really trying for a fourth. So she came to me with what I think was kind of really the reason why she was so successful. And that is, I mean, think about it, a mother who's, by the way, I didn't mention this, extremely successful businesswoman. Okay.
Mm,
Extremely. I have major, major respect for her. So all areas of her life, very, very
mm,
successful, right? And she has her children, but she really wanted one more to build her family. But her health was pretty dismal by all means. And so her doctors recommended against having another child, given the state of her health, specifically, her metabolic health and how complicated her other pregnancies were. She came to me, think about this, putting an ego aside, from a very successful businesswoman, already having, children and doing all of this in her life, putting her ego aside, basically showing up to my office and saying like, hey, I think I can do better here. My doctors all told me, because I've had these diagnoses in my previous pregnancy, it's like written in stone, right? And so we kind of did everything, kind of like think about walking through everything in the book, right? Like almost chapter by chapter. We essentially were just optimizing systems as best as possible, including her metabolic health. We did everything on that front, right? Continuous glucose monitor, so we could really dial in her diet, everything. And like, she not only got pregnant, she had the least complicated pregnancy, as again, whether it was a 41-year-old, 42-year-old, the least complicated pregnancy. Said she felt great the entire time. And by the way, I met with her on a monthly basis while she was pregnant, so I can report this. This isn't just hearsay from her. Less swelling than she's ever had in pregnancy. She did not need medication to keep her blood sugar under control, because we kept that monitor on her, and always were kind of dilated in. And again, so it was the best 9 months sort of experience, even though she had, again, kids when she was younger, right? So this goes back to this very big picture, that it's like, yes, we can know different risks exist. We can have, advanced maternal age or geriatric pregnancy, but you can do so many incredible things. I mean, Venus, this is just one example that like popped into my head
mm,
immediately. But again, the body, it's so remarkable. And I just want women to have a little bit more reverence for themselves as well
Mm.
and what they're capable of.
Amazing, amazing. Sounds very inspiring. A couple of questions I ask all my guests on this podcast. What is the book that changed your life?
Oh my gosh. I don't, the book that I would say changed my perspective the most probably was something that I read like 8 years ago at this point, called the You Are the Placebo by Joe Dispenza.
Oh yeah,
Have you read
yeah.
this book?
I haven't read that one. I've read the Supernatural and get
Okay.
the one that's
Yeah.
kind of like get out of your own way. That kind of I can't remember what the name of it is, but there's another book after Supernatural I've
Yes.
read. And that's one you said
Yes.
is actually the first one. I think. I think that might be an
Yeah,
earlier
I think
book of
this one was
his.
like, I mean, this had to have been like, I don't know,
Mm,
2015, 2014, something of that. Because
mm,
again, and the reason why this one in particular kind of sticks out, I think, the most in my mind is because I probably read it at a time that I was most receptive to it,
mm,
meaning I had already done, all the clinical rotations in the hospital and done all the medical nutrition therapy and the years and years and years of schooling, right, and graduate degree. And like not one time was this idea of having how our psychology influences our physiology, right? Kind of what you and I were talking about
mm,
earlier, like the emotions that you bring to, say, the table, right? Or to your
mm.
meal or to your food choices, and just how impactful this can be on biology. And by the way, we know this, again, speaking of randomized, double-blind, clinical control trials, we have sham surgeries showing that they have, equal outcomes compared to those who underwent, surgery. This is an orthopedic study in particular that I'm referring to. But we have these incredible studies showing this placebo effect
Mm.
and how powerful it is. And medicine knows that too, right? Even conventional medicine. I just think we forget it so much. Not once in all of my schooling, training, this and that was did I learn this? And so that's what I mean by I think I was just so receptive to hearing that information, like, oh my gosh, this is also a piece that we have to integrate in the care for our people, right? And
Mm.
be very, very conscientious of how we're influencing people's beliefs about themselves, about their food. It's wild. I'm so happy that it seemed like you've read like all his whole series.
I'm just a big reader. I'm a big reader. So what about a quote or affirmation that you live by?
Oh my gosh. I mean, look, I'm really trying not to give long-winded
Mm,
answers here, but I
mm.
feel like this is just this is what I'm bringing to you today. I would be truly lying to you if there
Mm,
was one that I live by. But let me actually tell you what I absolutely love in terms of like quotes or affirmations that mean a lot to me. So every day I use a meditation app,
mm.
and this is before I go to bed. It's called Waking Up by Sam
Oh.
Harris. I don't know if you've heard about it, but I absolutely love it. What I have the app do is now send me a push notification
Oh.
at any time of day, and this is what's called, they call it a moment, which I love, and it has a quote. That's all it is, right? It just basically pushes a quote to you. But the reason why I love this is that it forces, some are very uncomfortable, some are kind of warm and cuddly, but it always forces you just to like kind of stop what you're doing, take a step back and consider, like, your perception of self differently, or your perception of the world differently, or what you're doing on a day-to-day basis. And I just think, and some again are very serious. Some are about, the impermanence and kind of meditating on that, right, and death and this sort of thing. But it's far ranging, and I just love all of these kind of quotes that come to me, and I jot down ones that inspire me maybe that day, and keep them on my desk, and I do that often. So even though there's not one Venus,
Mhm.
I'm like, I
They're always
absolutely
different.
love
They're
quotes.
always
It's
different.
always different, and doesn't that
Mm,
kind of speak to this
yeah.
kind of greater idea of impermanence in the from the get-go,
Mm.
right? But
Well, I'm actually a teacher on Insight Timer, which is another meditation app, and
oh,
I
you
actually,
are. Oh my gosh,
yeah,
that's fabulous.
yeah, and I also do meditate affirmations on every single episode. So we'll do one about fertility for this one. You
I've
know,
heard them before, and
yeah.
all I can say is like my wish for
Mm,
any individual getting pregnant. It's probably not even like, hey, read the book. It's probably listen to your fertility affirmation, because I just think there's so many women who need that. So really, they truly, truly need that. And so, I mean, thank you for putting that out there into the world.
Cool. Thank you. So where can people find you?
Yeah, well, I'm here on, you can find me kind of on the website, so rachelswanson.com. I'm going to start getting a lot more social with this book launch on my Instagram, which is at rachelsrx. And hopefully sort of, next year I'll be rolling out a bunch of cool new features or programs or memberships. So definitely subscribe on the website if that appeals to you. But I can't wait to just start bringing more and more information sort of outside the clinic to help more people.
So tell us the name of your book, because we haven't mentioned the name.
Yep, it's called Trying.
Amazing. It's a great name.
Thank you.
Well, thank you so much for joining us on the Orgasmic Lifestyle podcast. It's been a real pleasure.
Thank you so much, Venus.
The series I'm watching now is Younger, and that's available on Netflix. And I love this show. I think it's kind of old right now. I think it might be maybe 10 years old or a little bit less. But I love it for many reasons. It's set in New York and Brooklyn, and it also takes place in the publishing industry, in a book publisher. And as you probably know, if you've been listening to this podcast, I am such a bookworm and I love books, especially physical books. I've published 4 books of my own, so I really do love that whole process and the world of books and publishing. And of course, on this podcast, I interview many authors like today's guest. So I love to read books and then actually speak to the author, which is such a wonderful, wonderful part of my job. But going back to Younger, this is about a woman who is 40 and she's from New Jersey originally, and she's going through a divorce, and she has a grown-up daughter who is going to university. So she has to get back to work, and she's been out of the workforce for quite some time. So she's getting, her feet back on the ground after divorce, etc. And then she finds that because she's not been working and because of her age, that she's finding it difficult to find a job. So she has this ingenious idea to lie about her age. And then she gets hired by a publisher. And that's why I love it. I just love books so much. But it's really interesting about how this small lie becomes a big part of her life. And it's interesting about, when people lead double lives, you have to have a good memory and understand, who knows what about you and how you talk about your life and what you've been and where you've studied, and all that, lots of cultural references about, TV that you grew up with, or even music that you listen to. And also the character in it called Liza seems to be a bit out of touch with the younger generations. There's lots of comparisons of 40 somethings with 20 somethings, and how even if we're in the same space, not being in the same time can really have a lot of differences in terms of how we approach relationships and just communicating in general. And of course, social media, not having a presence on social media, and versus everyone sharing everything on social media, etc. So it's really interesting how she tries to maintain this lie and how the obstacles that come as a result of it. And she starts to date this young guy who is a tattoo artist, and I think it starts off as being quite casual, but then when it starts to get more serious, that you have to ask yourself the question, when do I reveal my age? When do I tell the truth? And that's what's really interesting about this series. And is it really a big lie to lie about your age? And also, because I actually had a situation where someone who was quite special to me lied to me about their age, and they don't know that I know. Well, they don't know that I know, but I just found it really crazy. I mean, I think, sometimes it can not be a big lie. Let's say if you meet someone on a dating app, which it wasn't the case in this particular case, but in general, on dating apps, people do tend to take a couple of years off here and there. And don't get me started on the very old profile pictures when someone was a lot younger. Then you meet them and you're like, are you really the same person? But anyway, it's quite normal to, take a couple of years off here and there. But then when you meet someone or you start to get serious, I think that's the time to actually, correct the lie. But in this case, this lie was not correct. And what really makes me feel strange about it is that when I thought they were approaching a milestone birthday, and they never corrected me. So I just feel a bit silly, and it makes me wonder, what else were they lying about? It's crazy. And that's the same issue that happens in this series, Younger. I think sometimes when you've been maintaining a lie for such a long time, you start to even act like it's true or believing it. And then when it is unraveled after a long time and lots of trust, it makes you question, how do I know you? How do I actually really know who you are? And what are your values as well? And something that's kind of interesting in this series that I've found, because I'm on season 4 now, so I've just been binge watching it over the last few weeks, that Liza, the character, does also have a crush on her boss, who is called Charles, and the feeling is mutual. So she feels like she has to tell him her age at some point. But obviously that's another question of being with the boss, which is also, a bit of a, let's say, a bit of forbidden fruit. But it's quite apparent that, she connects more with people of her own age, and then she's, people are kind of like, thinking she's mature, or it's kind of, questionable about how the cultural references she has in terms of the music she listens to, the music that's impacted her, and of course, TV shows that you grow up with. Because it's really interesting how we can have so many different references according to our generation, not just our culture. But yeah, this series is so great, because I do absolutely love. I mean, I stayed in Williamsburg last summer, and I love it there. I love New York. I love how walkable it is, and of course, I love the world of books and publishing. And it gave me a kind of it's kind of like vision board material for me, because I do want to get a book published in the US at some point. That's something I would love to accomplish in the future, because until now I've been published by publishers in Spain, and I also self-published my last book. So I would love to be a part of that process. So seeing it on screen is kind of like aspirational to me. And also I just want to get back to the US as soon as I can. Well, hopefully in a couple of months, and especially back to New York again. But yeah, so Younger is a really light-hearted series. I love the dialogue. It's kind of sarcastic, witty, almost comedy, and I'm just can't wait to see how it unfolds. And I'm hoping that the love story is going to become, more authentic when the lie is exposed. Yeah, it's really interesting, because over the series, over the seasons, I'm on season 4 now. Different people are discovering the lie. And then it's kind of like, how is it going to be when everyone discovers? I have my idea, but I'm going to keep that to myself. So if you're looking for something that's kind of lighthearted, and if you like the world of age differences and references, then I definitely recommend it. It's also a kind of theme that's been quite popular lately in different films and series about the older woman and the younger man, which is something that's quite refreshing, because we usually see it the other way around. There's another film that I love. I think it was called Lonely Planet. It was a writer who goes to Morocco, and then she gets it on with a younger guy. A big age difference there. And also, I really loved Baby Girl, starring Nicole Kidman, and who has an affair with her intern, who's a 20-something-year-old as well. So it's kind of interesting to see that. And someone recently asked me on my YouTube channel if I preferred older men or younger men. And I said, for relationships, older; for situationships, younger. But I've had some dalliances with younger men, and it has been interesting. And I think it's a lot more emotional than what people assume. I think sometimes people assume that going with a younger person is all about the stamina and the physique. But there's just something about it that just seems like there's less expectations. That's at least my experience of it. So if you're interested in any of these themes, I highly recommend Younger, which is available on Netflix. Now it's time for this episode's meditation. Please don't listen to this while driving or operating machinery. Instead, take a break from whatever you're doing, get comfortable, take a deep breath, and enjoy. I nourish my body with love and intention. Every meal is an act of self-love. I lovingly prepare meals that support my well-being. I enjoy colourful, fresh, life-giving foods. I give my body the nutrients it needs to thrive. I am worthy of feeling nourished and satisfied. I nourish my body with love and intention. Every meal is an act of self-love. I radiate health, balance, and vitality. My body thanks me for every healthy choice. I move towards my health goals, one meal at a time. My future self thanks me for how I eat today. I make healthy choices every day. I nourish my body with love and intention. Every meal is an act of self-love. Healthy food makes me feel vibrant and alive. I eat slowly and savor each bite. I honor my hunger and my fullness. I trust myself around food. I make healthy choices every day. I nourish my body with love and intention. Each meal is an act of self-love. Eating well is a joyful ritual. I am proud of how I care for myself. I release guilt and welcome nourishment. I deserve to feel well in my body. I make healthy choices every day. I nourish my body with love and intention. Each meal is an act of self-love. I feel connected to my body when I eat well. I honor the effort that went into growing and preparing my food. I choose foods that are good for me. I feel empowered by the way I nourish myself. I make healthy choices every day. I nourish my body with love and intention. Every meal is an act of self-love. I am free from old patterns that no longer serve me. I create a peaceful and positive eating environment. I am patient with myself as I build new habits. I have a healthy relationship with food. I make healthy choices every day. Are you looking to strengthen your pelvic floor in a fun and engaging way? Introducing PeriFit, the pelvic floor trainer that combines biofeedback with interactive video games. With PeriFit, you can track your progress and improve your pelvic health while playing video games with your vagina on your smartphone. It's easy, effective, and more importantly, it's fun. And for a limited time, get 25% off with the code Venus15 at checkout. That's perifit.co and use the code Venus15 for 25% off. The link is also in the show notes. Disclaimer: consult your healthcare provider before starting any new fitness program. To find out more about me and my orgasmic lifestyle, visit venusohara.org or follow me on Instagram. The Orgasmic Lifestyle is also on Substack and YouTube, where you can watch all the interviews with our experts. All the links are in the show notes below. Make sure to search for the Orgasmic Lifestyle Podcast by Venus O'Hara in Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and Google Podcasts, or anywhere podcasts are found. And click subscribe so you don't miss any future episodes. Thanks for listening, have an orgasmic week, and make sure every day is a climax.